closer to you.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah, thank you.
Everybody ready? Listos? Okay.
Fix that.
All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Los Angeles Unified. We are here at the Alexander Science Center School. I'm sure everybody's gone to the movies and seen A Night at the Museum. This is a school at the museum. Fun every day for our kids, great experiences for our teachers and our community in beautiful Exposition Park. Let me begin by acknowledging the presence of our school board member who so ably represents this area of our great district, board member Charlotte Newbill. We also have Dr. Rocio Rivas, Vice President of the school board, and the chair of the school board, the president of the school board, Scott Schmerlson, with us. You'll be hearing from a number of distinguished leaders in our state, including Governor Gavin Newsom, who's been here in Los Angeles over the past couple of days to celebrate the signage of important legislation that will benefit, no doubt, teachers, students, principals, and our entire community. Today is no exception. Today we are here to celebrate the signing of a critically important bill, AB 1454, by Speaker Robert Rivas, will usher into the state of California a new era of literacy instruction, developing and adopting critical standards that have been well endorsed by peer-reviewed research over the past 4 decades. The adoption of curricular materials that are aligned to the best standards, and ushering in also a new era of professional development for our great educators in the state of California aligned to those standards. This is a bill whose time has come. It is known to all of us that the conditions facing our children in public schools and private schools and charter schools across the state of California has over time become poorer. More students identified with disabilities, more students who are speakers of languages other than English. Adopting the right curriculum, the right standards, the right training, and the right methodology is critically important at this point. All children can learn. There are no excuses, and they deserve the very best from us. AB 1454 is a tremendous leap in the progress that we need to make with the students of our state. So, to Speaker Rivas, to the individuals representing organizations that you'll be hearing from in a bit, but most importantly to our governor, my friend Gavin Newsom, I say thank you on behalf of 540,000 students who learn and thrive every single day in Los Angeles Unified. The second point I'd like to make is a little bit about Los Angeles Unified. And let me begin by apologizing to the entire state of California and the nation for Los Angeles Unified is having a very special moment in history, one without precedent. Let me just put it to you like this. Based on state assessments, this year, across all disciplines tested, that is reading, mathematics, and science, across all grade levels tested from 3rd through 11th grade, and across all subgroups of students, that is white, black, Latino, English language learners, students with disabilities, foster care kids, kids experiencing homelessness, everybody moved up. Not just by a little bit, but in a very statistically compelling way. We measure progress in Los Angeles and across the state of California in 2 ways. Number one is improvement over time, growth over time. We call that distance from standard. Here's where the expectation for kids' reading ability or math computation ability would be. How far below that are they, or are they above that distance from standard? For the first time in the history of Los Angeles Unified, we were able not only to accomplish what I just described, but the gains in distance from standard, meaning the growth from last year to this year across the board, were double digit. This follows last year's very compelling improvement in reading, math, and science experienced by our kids. I want to extend my immense gratitude to our teachers, to our support staff, to our leaders, to our school board for staying the course and, quite frankly, adopting science of reading methodology in advance of the state. I believe that our gains in literacy are due to the early investments we made in professional development and acquisition of instructional tools that served our students well. That is why I thank Governor Newsom, because not only is AB 1454 about to be signed, but back in June, he included in his budget $200 million towards the implementation of this critical piece of legislation and empowerment tool for the teachers of our state. A lot more will be said about where we are as a school system at tomorrow's event right here in our community. But today, we celebrate the fact that we can proudly say that as Los Angeles goes in terms of education, so goes the state of California. And I have eyes on other urban districts across the country. I can tell you that the second largest school district in the nation and the largest independent school district in the nation is by far outpacing other states and other urban centers across the nation in terms of literacy, numeracy, and science. With that said, there's a long way to go. Our kids are still performing well below their potential. This game is not over. We're not even at the end of the first quarter, but the indicators are solid in terms of the strategies that we have deployed, the investments we have made, and the unflinching, unapologetic way with which we have taken on school reform and transformative work on behalf of our children. Unas palabras en español, me siento muy orgulloso de... Okay, I'll give you a chance. Me siento muy orgulloso de estar aquí acompañado por el gobernador de nuestro estado, el señor Gavin Newsom, y representantes comunitarios que han hecho tanto por cambiar la política de educación en nuestro estado. Hoy estamos celebrando una firma muy importante de una pieza de legislatura que va a cambiar el proceso de educación, principalmente la lectura, aquí en nuestro estado de California. Un proceso y una metodología que nosotros apoyamos aquí en Los Ángeles. Una inversión de más de $200 millones promovido y aprobado por nuestro gobernador. Es la medida correcta para estimular el desarrollo académico de nuestros niños. También estamos aquí para celebrar que por primera vez, de una forma histórica sin precedente, nuestro sistema escolar de Los Ángeles, nuestro sistema unificado de Los Ángeles, ha conseguido un aprovechamiento académico este año histórico sin precedente en todas las áreas de matemática, de lectura y de ciencia, a un nivel histórico. En este momento hemos pasado el nivel de aprovechamiento académico prepandémico. Eso es histórico. Lo hemos hecho de una forma también especial. No solamente aumentamos el nivel de aprovechamiento académico, pero lo hicimos en todos los grados, en todas las disciplinas y con todos los grupos de estudiantes, incluyendo los aprendices de inglés, los latinos, los afroamericanos, los asiáticos y los estudiantes blancos. Eso significa que el segundo distrito más grande en nuestro país está demostrando al estado de California y a todo el país lo que es posible para nuestros estudiantes. Last point I'd like to make is that, and I saved this for last, I promised 3 years ago that 2 years into the implementation of our strategic plan, we would meet and exceed pre-pandemic levels, because pre-pandemic achievement levels are inadequate and insufficient for our kids. I'm here to announce that this year, based on this data, delivered by our teachers, by our students, we were able not only to meet, but actually significantly surpass pre-pandemic achievement levels. It is a great day for Los Angeles Unified. So with that said, let me introduce Ms. Marta Hernandez with California Together.
Good Good morning, everyone. I'm Marta Hernandez, the Executive Director of Californians Together, a coalition, a statewide coalition of 38 organizations advocating for the 1.1 million English learners in California. I've spent more than 40 years in public education, from bilingual teacher, special education teacher, to assistant superintendent, and I can tell you, moments like this matter. On behalf of the coalition, I want to thank Governor Newsom and the authors of Assembly Bill 1454, Assembly members Marsucci and Rubio, and Assembly Speaker Rivas for all of their help, and for everyone who helped make AB 1454 a reality. AB 1454 is a milestone for California's students and teachers. It reaffirms the state's commitment to help every child build a strong literacy and language skills through instruction grounded in California's English Language Arts, English Language Development Framework, our research-based foundation for literacy education. The framework teaches us that reading is more than sounding out words. It's about making meaning, combining phonics and fluency with oral language, writing, with background knowledge and comprehension and English language development. Also, these are the skills that enable our students, including multilingual learners, to thrive as readers and writers and thinkers. And so what does the bill do? The bill prepares educators. It helps teachers and administrators to be ready to deliver instruction aligned with the framework and to support English learners effectively. It also calls for the adoption of instructional materials that are aligned with the framework and recent research. It also invests in professional learning, supporting all components of literacy with added attention for students learning English and for those facing reading challenges. The work does build on the state investments that have been instated to implement the framework, as highlighted in the governor's Golden State Literacy Plan. This includes things like literacy coaches, the English Learner Roadmap, and also resources like California's Literacy Roadmap, the preschool through third grade learning progressions, and the California Preschool Transitional Kindergarten Learning Foundations, and much, much more. Together, these efforts equipped educators with the tools and the guidance to deliver comprehensive, high-quality literacy instruction to every child, no matter what language they speak at home. And so I must mention that AB 1454 is collaboration and compromise at its best. It was really shaped through the voices of educators, families, researchers, advocates, and legislators working together to ensure that California's approach to literacy reflects the diversity and brilliance of our students. And so again, on behalf of Californians Together and our partners, I want to again thank Governor Newsom and the bill's authors for their leadership and vision. Este es un día de esperanza para todos los estudiantes de California. Gracias. And at this time, I'd like to, it's my pleasure to introduce Marshall Tuck, who is representing EdVoice. Marshall.
Thanks a lot, Martha, and congratulations, Superintendent Carvalho, and congrats to all the educators and school site staff and parents and students in LA Unified for making that progress happen, and it happens through a lot of hard work. And those folks are working hard out there in the school, so congratulations to them. It's inspiring when students succeed. It lifts everything else up. And what's exciting is that our students are going to have even more success next year and in the future because of the bill that the governor is going to sign today. AB 1454 is about helping more children learn to read. And there's nothing more important in a public education system than ensuring all kids can learn to read, because reading is the gateway to all future learning and all future knowledge. When a child learns to read, they're not learning just to decode words on a page. They're learning to dream bigger, and they're learning to think critically. and they're learning to find possibility beyond what they can see. That's the power of learning, and that's the power of reading. And with AB 1454, every elementary and middle school classroom in this state is going to have instructional materials that are aligned with what the science and research says are the most effective way for children to learn to read. This is a special bill for California's kids, and it passed unanimously. I want to say that again. This bill passed unanimously. Think about that. In these divided times, that showing of unity, it's powerful because it shows that we all stepped up and put kids first, that this state put kids first. And that happened because of our state's leadership. Our governor has made literacy a top priority since the start of his administration. And he made it very clear this bill needed to get done. Speaker Rivas made this his only bill of this legislative cycle. And him and his staff put in a ton of time to build a broad coalition that got behind this effort. Assemblymember Rubio, she never stopped in her determination to make sure that meaningful reading legislation got passed in this state. And Assemblymember Merritt Suchi came on as a joint author to strengthen this effort. And a lot of other folks work real hard for this bill to get done. And we got to remember, you got to work hard for real bills to get done to really change people's lives. Folks from EdVoice and NAACP California, Hawaii, folks working at Californians Together and the California Teachers Association and Families in Schools and Decoding Dyslexia, all putting countless hours to champion and shape legislation that's going to lift up a lot of kids' lives. California put kids first to get this bill done, and not just in words, but in action and in hard work. And I want to say one thing before I wrap up. I really believe it's a blessing for kids in California that our governor struggled as a reader because of his dyslexia. And I imagine it was really difficult, but I think it's a blessing because it clearly drives his determination, commitment to make sure that every single child in this state learns to read and has that power and possibility that reading brings in terms of opportunity. So just want to thank you for being so open about your journey and for your leadership on this issue. And it's just my absolute honor to introduce our governor, Governor Gavin Newsom.
Thank you, Marshall. Thank you. Thank you to Marshall, Martha, to the superintendent. I'll brag on all of them in a moment. I also want to recognize the extraordinary leadership of Brooks Allen and our team at the state board. To everybody assembled here today, including from the LA Unified School District Board, this is a proud moment. You know, I say this often, we're nothing but a mirror of our consistent thoughts. Whatever we focus on, we find more of. And when it comes to public education in this country, in this state, we tend to be focused on what's wrong often. And it tends to manifest, and you can find more proof points and can fill you with a tremendous sense of anxiety that things can't get better. But I hope what you heard today from the superintendent, what you heard from these other leaders, distills a sense of well-being, that things are getting better, that we're not only moving in the right direction, we're leading in that respect. Every subject, in every cohort, in every grade, we saw improvement. ELA, science, and math. 4x faster pace of growth than we had seen in prior years. Our investments are paying off. And that is the most important message I want to deliver. Those investments are unprecedented in this state. Let me give you one example. A number of years back, we discussed and debated the issues, the benefits of community schools, this notion of wraparound services. This notion of addressing some of the issues that persist outside of the school system itself and how those are brought into the classroom and how we could provide more choice and give the community more voice in the education of their kids. $14 billion, the most significant investments this state has made in decades, have been invested in our community schools efforts. 4.4 almost $4.5 billion this year alone is being invested, disproportionately benefiting districts like LA Unified School Districts, other districts nearby like Compton, Sanger, and others are beneficiaries of this. But I'm not just asserting a point. I'm also here to make a point that was highlighted with an independent review of the first cohort of those receiving the benefits of community schools, where we saw extraordinary improvement in reducing suspensions, reducing chronic absenteeism, improvements in math, and that has been stubborn for us in this state, and ELA, proving what we were asserting. It's working. And now we're seeing that scaled all across the state of California. But that's just one of the unprecedented investments we have been making. You heard referenced a moment ago that every 4-year-old now has access to a brand new grade. We created a brand new grade, TK for all. We say this often. People aren't left behind, they start behind. So you've got to begin at the beginning. And that's why it was essential that we lay that platform and we develop a new framework, an expectation, TK to 12. In that respect, we also were mindful of quality. It's not just the inputs as it relates to access, but it's quality. $2.1 billion was invested on an annual basis in this space, but an additional $1.2 billion was invested in getting the teacher-student ratios down. And that investment remained, even despite some difficult budget years, from 12 to 1 this last year to 10 to 1. This is not happening in most other states. And so that's our state of mind. That's the quality of imagination that we're trying to bring to public education. But it doesn't just end there. One of the areas that I'm most proud of is not just the community schools and the establishment of a brand new grade, but the work the superintendent, all of you have done across this state with historic investments in extended learning. And as someone who needed that extended learning, not just after school, but summer school, in the spirit of Marshall's comments, I really appreciate the legislature's leadership in this space. 9 hours a day of enrichment, dealing with that summer loss and providing 30 days access. This is a big investment, $4.4 billion. That we're investing just in this space for this kind of extended learning. There was a lot of promotion in the past about after school for all. It never materialized. We're actually delivering it, and we're delivering it with targeted focus on underperforming schools and underperforming districts. And we're targeting the TK cohort as our top priority. We're also, and I'll wrap up, targeting this stubborn issue of literacy in a way we haven't in the past. And that gets me back to bragging on the folks that just spoke. We need to do more. We need to do better. And we are doing more. And as you see today, we are doing better. And I want to applaud the Speaker. As was said, Marshall's absolutely right. There was only one bill the Speaker said he wanted to attach his name to. And he helped create the conditions that led to this bipartisan support of a bill that's long overdue. The superintendent made that point subtly in terms of the leadership that he demonstrably has advanced here without waiting for the state of California. But it builds on over $500 million that we have invested in literacy coaches over the last few years. Additional $200 million that Martha referenced that was in the budget this year in this space. And now we have enshrined, or will in a moment, the architecture for the meaning of those investments from a professional development perspective, not just for teachers themselves, but more broadly for principals and the entire ecosystem within the school and the district. And so this is long overdue, but it builds on this. And I don't think most people are aware of this. From 2011 to 2022, I'm waiting for the newest numbers, there was no other system of education in the United States of America that saw faster improvement in reading for 8th graders than the state of California. Again, these investments are starting to produce real results. But yes, good enough never is. And no, we're not satisfied with where we are. But I will say 1.8% improvement in ELA this year, 1.8% improvement in math this year, and 2% improvement in science. It's a good start. The significantly greater improvement, however, and I will end as we began, in LA Unified is the reason the state can lay claim to this larger narrative. It is absolutely true that LA Unified has outperformed the state, and as LA Unified goes, the state of California goes. And it's also a point of pride that you made the decision to extend the tenure of arguably the best and the brightest mind as a superintendent in the United States of America, LA. We can say this to the folks in, well, Miami, eat your heart out. And I cannot impress upon you how grateful we are, Mr. Superintendent, of your leadership across the spectrum. Final words, that was demonstrable yesterday. And yesterday we announced we provide about 1 billion meals a year in our public school system. We were the first in the nation to provide 2 free meals a day. But we did something yesterday that's also first in the nation, and that's to address the issue of ultra-processed foods. And as has been the case so often, Superintendent said, well, welcome to that conversation as well. We've already taken steps to move in that direction. So that's what leadership is about. Marshall Tuck, that's what leadership looks like. Marshall did a remarkable job of working across the aisle, every conceivable difference to create the conditions to help the Speaker get this bill to my desk. And Marshall, I just want to thank you for decades of your leadership, but particularly what you've done with literacy and the partnership with our system and with Brooks and Linda and others over the course of the last few years. And Martha, you are an advocate that demands more from us and expects more from us. And I know you will be back next year expecting more bills to be signed, more investments to be made. But again, I'm really proud to see these investments paying off. And I hope we have been able to communicate that pride today and demonstrably back it up in terms of the data. With that, we're here now to sign this bill and get this process moving formally. We'll do a quick.
All right, there we go.
Done. All right. I'll put that up in your hands.
Well said. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. It's a long time coming. And it is about creating the conditions where success becomes irresistible. And again, that's the work of Marshall and Martha and others that helped create those conditions in Sacramento that allowed us to gain the kind of support we did. With that, we're here to answer any questions.
Governor, you said it was a long time coming. Can you talk about how those negotiations and how hard it was to bring all those interests to the table to have these tough negotiations?
Well, I think everybody has the same interest in mind, and that's the same outcome. They want to see improvements and just want to do things with people, not to people. And I think it's about building trust. It's about relationships. Often it's about language. So often it's about language. But at the end of the day, the one common denominator is if we're going to move off our position, are you going to back it up with real resources? And I think that, more than anything else, unstuck a lot of these conversations. And we've just been privileged in the last few years to be able to do some things we haven't been able to do in decades in California and make these historic investments above and beyond Prop 98 guarantees. And I think that helped aid and advance this effort.
And then 2 days ago, you also signed the anti-Semitism in schools bill. Can you talk a little bit about what that is?
Well, that was a long process as well, and in many respects has connected some of the ethnic studies questions. And both are subject to appropriation and support in the legislature in the next few years, and both are nuanced, and both have their supporters and their detractors. And both are works in progress. And, I thought it important to sign that bill on the second anniversary of that terrorist act by Hamas on October 7th. By the way, let me applaud Jared Kushner and Witkoff and others for what appears to be a job well done on phase 1 of a peace deal agreement. Long overdue, and that's not, there's no partisanship in this respect. We are here to promote peace. And just address these lives torn asunder. So I thought it was appropriate to put it out on that date, but it's a work in progress, meaning we're setting up the standards for deal with hate, discrimination across the spectrum, and we have work to do to set up that office and the coordinators throughout the system, and that work begins in next year's budget.
Governor Newsom, Cal State Los Angeles said it is giving the name and number of every employee to the Trump administration for an anti-Semitism investigation. Should universities be handing over employee roles to President Trump? And will you ask for an independent review of Cal State like you did with UC Berkeley?
Yeah, and interestingly, and thank you for mentioning, I just received that review, and the compelling case that was made that they legally were required to do what they do. That distills the essence of what was provided to me. By definition, to the frame of your question, I would extend that same consideration to understand why you see now CSU is providing that information. It goes without saying we're stone's throw away here from USC as well. And as it relates to what we're seeing as an assault on independent thinking, institutions of independent thinking, academic freedom. But as it relates to information that in prior administrations was turned over and legally is required to be turned over, they may be compelled by that. But obviously, we'll take a look at the details, not dissimilar to what we did at UC Berkeley.
So you haven't yet decided if you're fully satisfied with that explanation, but that you're...
I just received the report. I'm just reviewing the report from UC. I would extend that same criteria as you framed the question as it relates to reviewing the justification for doing something that appears to be similar at the CSU system. Would request and will receive similar information on the basis of that information that I received recently at UC Berkeley.
And just one follow-up. It's been more than 2 months since the Trump administration proposed a $1 billion UCLA settlement. Is there a timeline to sign off on a UC deal with you?
Well, that's a regental question, and I've made my position very, very clear on that. Very clear on that. And it was reinforced, forgive me once again, proximate to USC in the context of this quote-unquote compact that the Trump administration is seeking, which is just simply without precedent in modern American history. And it is assault on academic freedom. And again, it is consistent with an assault against institutions across the spectrum of independent thinking and cultivation of independent thought. And that should put chills up the spine of everybody. And so I am crystal clear that we should not be negotiating on his terms.
But on that $1 billion settlement.
And that is very much directed to your question about that $1 billion settlement at UCLA. Anybody else?
I'll ask for. Yeah, just can you clarify about the $4.4 billion? Is that going just toward the implementation of AB 1454 or towards other programs?
No, more broadly. I'm sure Martha would love to see 4.4 billion. Marshall, on that. No, those are there are a number of investments that we've made in community schools and after school and summer school for all, what we refer to in the lexicon of the state board as extended learning, and that money is in that space. But as it relates to the issue connected to the bill I signed, this is a companion bill that aligns with the appropriation that was made in this year's budget of $200 million that builds on the $500 million, $500 million, that we put in over the last